Hello my loves, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. We are less than 10 seconds into this video and I can already feel myself getting so overwhelmed and so emotional. Today's video is something I didn't really think I was ever going to share on my YouTube channel, but I've been very inspired, and it's so funny. My friend Haley Reese here on YouTube inspires me every single day of my life. That is my sister. We so many times a day will have the same thought about the same thing and text each other, and we think about each other at the same time. It's like we are so soul connected, like such soul sisters. And whether you believe in that or not, like that is my other half. She's been talking recently about like Christmas sort of miracle stories, about very like faith restoring stories, and about things that like kind of make you see the afterlife and like the paranormal in a different way. And I wanted to share with you my hardest paranormal story. And I'm really sorry in advance because I'm gonna get really overwhelmed a lot in this video because it's still really fresh. It's still really hard for me to process, but I do want to share it because it is such like a happy story. If this isn't your cup of tea, I'll probably just see you back for another viral scary story or another makeup video or another fashion video. But this is something that is so near and dear to my heart. This is something that means so much to me, and it means even more that Haley was a part of it for me. Like someone who is my best friend, like my actual sister. It's crazy. So I literally was texting her. I just did like a huge Sephora haul and I was so distracted the entire time. I wasn't going to tell this story, and I just felt so drawn to. I felt over and over and over and over and over again like distracted during that haul, because it was like I don't want to talk about makeup. I don't want to talk about superficial stuff, and even though I love superficial stuff, don't get a girl wrong, I felt like I wanted to talk about something real, and I don't know why this is weighing so heavily on me, but I like to think anyways that when thoughts like this come into my mind, when I think about people and reaching out to them, I follow those urges. When I think about stories and telling them, I follow those urges, because my hope is that somebody needs to hear it, and I'm talking to those people right now in this video, and to you too who just is interested in my story. So I'm gonna start off with, this is my story about why I believe in the afterlife, why I believe in ghosts, why I believe in spirituality, why I'm a very spiritual person, and I feel like I'm waking up more and more and more and more as I get older. And in order to do that, I do feel like I need to touch on religion really briefly. And I want to say first and foremost, if you don't have a religion, that's dope, dude. Like, I have people in my family who are agnostic atheists or atheists, and I don't look at anybody any differently. I don't look at any religion any differently at all. I think that every religion is correct, and I think that every religion has the same place, if that makes any sense. For a long time, I was not a religious person. And I did notice that that was a time in my life where things were just very dark. I was struggling at my peak with my eating disorder. I had just really, and you have to understand that religion has always been major in my life because my parents worked in a church, and I was in church from the millisecond that I was born to, I mean, pretty much when I moved out, and I had a choice. I wound up working in the church. I was very religious, but there's something about seeing the nasty part of religion. And I don't want to say that because I love my former church, and I've loved most of the churches I've ever been in, but it's a business in a lot of ways, to keep it running, to raise money. And some people are going to get really offended that I say that, and you have to understand, like, I believe in a God. I love a God. I love Jesus. Like, I am a very spiritual and religious person at this point in my life, but there was a period in time where I struggled really badly because I, at a young age, had to see the dark parts of religion. And I think that that was a good thing. I think it really like woke me up and made me see reality, if that makes sense. And for a long time, I felt very scorned, very like, you know, I don't believe in a God if this is what people use religion for. And there was a time in my life when I was around 16, and I get very emotional remembering this story, that I remember sitting in my room, and I'm not going to say exactly what I was feeling, because I didn't put a trigger warning on this, but I'm sure that a lot of you can understand like the level of the dark place that I was in, and it's something I've never really talked about before. And I remember thinking, like, if this is all there is, like, you know, and I suddenly, it was out of nowhere, like I was so overwhelmed, I was so hurt and tired, and I felt so beaten down by life. I was in the prime of struggling with my eating disorder. I had just broken up with my long-term boyfriend, and I felt so helpless and hopeless. And I remember feeling this sudden, overwhelming sense of relief and this sudden, like, joy out of nowhere. And I was so miserable, you guys, and I had been miserable for such a long time. And I just remember feeling so whole, and like something had like wrapped its arms around me, and I didn't really feel that, but it was like something had. And I felt like this warmth. And whether anyone who doesn't, you know, have a religion, of course, I'm sure that there's a scientific reason behind that. You know, maybe it was a placebo effect, like me wanting to feel better. But I just felt so loved. And I remembered something in me, and it wasn't a voice that I heard, but something said, you're gonna be okay, everything's okay. You just hold on and you're gonna be all right. And it was so powerful that when I went back to the church the next week, I listened to the sermon. Like, I remembered when I would sing in the choir, singing from like my heart more and more and more and more, and I found so much joy now in church, even though I did know the dark parts of it, even though I did, you know, have some issues from seeing things, you know, from my parents' perspectives. I mean, they were employees of the church. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is that the only other time I've ever felt that in my entire life was the night that my dad passed away. And I get so touchy and overwhelmed about my dad because he is and was my best friend on planet Earth. And I have a whole video filmed that basically goes into detail about how I felt during that time period, but I'm gonna upload it after Vlogmas because this is a story of like joy. I promise you guys, as overwhelmed as I am right now, this is a good story, and that is a story that is very hard for me to relive. But I do want to put it out there eventually. But regardless, rambling as per usual. The night that my dad passed away was the hardest night of my entire life. I was in my kitchen and everyone had gone to sleep that was with me during this time period because it had just been a long day slash night. You know what? This might have been 24 hours later because I remember I didn't sleep that night and nobody slept that night. But I was finally alone, and I remember thinking, like, people had been reminding me, you know, to drink water and stuff like that, but it had been like 24 straight hours since I'd eaten anything, and longer than that, since I hadn't eaten for a while before I got the news about my dad, and then I, you know, whatever. And I went to the kitchen and I cut up this apple. And I felt so weird about doing such a human thing in this time where it was like my life was over. My best friend was gone, like no longer on this earth. And I took a bite of this apple and it was so sweet, and like it tasted like candy. It was hard, it's really hard to explain. Of course fruit is sweet, but like I bit into it and it was this overwhelming, like, holy cow, like this is the most beautiful and magical thing I've ever tasted in my entire life. Like, I know that that can sound kind of silly, but it just was. And I remember just sitting there like, how does this apple like taste like that, you know? And there was this little voice, and I don't know where it came from, that said, that's what heaven is like. And I remember I just envisioned my dad in this beautiful place where everything was so pure and perfect, you know? Oh my God. This is hard to relive, and this is hard to talk about, and I've really only gone back to that night a few times. And I really, like I said, I have a video coming out on it, and it was the second time in my life when I felt this overwhelming sense of like relief, of like happiness in the darkest time of my entire life, this like sense of peace. Like I was so broken and hurting so badly, and it was like something just wrapped its arms around me and was like, you're okay. And that was the second time I had ever felt like that. I knew that my dad was there pretty much from the moment that he passed, but those are very personal stories, and I never thought that I would come on camera and tell them. Like, my channel really is for entertainment, and even though I'm so sorry, I'm so overwhelmed, by the way, I can't bring it down, and I do feel happy, and this is a happy story, I promise. But from the moment that he passed away, I did feel my dad. And again, wasn't going to talk about it, even though a lot of my paranormal stories are very real and from my life. All of my stories are real and from my life. It was just something I share a lot, and I just didn't know if I wanted to share that. Because it's not something that if somebody told me, like, it's not really your dad, it's all in your head, I don't really know that I could take that, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't want anyone to like take apart everything that I said, but I would feel him, and I would feel him all the time in everything that I did. I was like, he's here. I would dream about him all the time. He was just very present, and I was so grateful because I knew, of course, that he was gone, but I felt him there in a lot of ways. I was in my apartment and I was testing out different EVP apps on my phone because I wanted to do the video with Haley where we stayed in the Marilyn Monroe suite at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. And I was just, I think I said in that video, or I said in a video, that I had tested out a bunch of apps. And I remember one of them started working, and it said, I was like, are you, I mean, you guys can go back and watch the video, but I asked, are you the thing that's been turning off and on the lights in my bedroom and like trying to scare me? And the thing said reaction. And I remember just looking at it and thinking to myself, like, God, I wish my dad would talk to me. Like, I wish he would come through, because I know he's here and I can sense him all of the time. It's like, I'll catch these huge whiffs of his cologne and like his shampoo, like everything that was so 100% my dad, like a scent you can't bottle. I just wished he would come through. And I went to bed. And a week later, Haley and I did the video at the Marilyn Monroe suite. And while we were there, we were taking a break and just talking to each other, because I think that you guys saw in the videos, like there was a lot of noise happening. We couldn't really film the whole time. Haley did give me permission to tell this story. And Haley was like, do you want to see a magic trick? And I was like, yeah, like show me the magic trick. And she looked into this light that was near us, and she looked at me and she was like, okay, think of a number 1 through 10 or something like that. And we both guessed the same number at the same time. And then she kind of like looks away for a minute and she looks back at me and she's like, whose birthday is October 20th? And that's my dad's birthday. And I was just staring at her because I don't think maybe I've said it on camera or maybe I've said it on social media before. But I knew that Haley wouldn't use that against me. This is why the Psychic Twins and I have talked about doing a collab. Like, I've thought about going to psychics. I never have, because I never wanted my dad to come through. And as much as like I can wish that he would, I didn't want it to happen, because it's that like, it's this sense of closure that I wasn't ready for. And I think that my dad knew that. And basically Haley asked that and I just stared at her. And she was like, there's someone here who wants to talk to you. And she starts saying a lot of things, and basically I can't remember all of it up until this one point, but it was a lot of things like, do you know a Sandra? Do you know this person? Like whatever. And I was kind of like, none of that really rings a bell. None of it sounds very like relevant to me. And then she stops for a minute and she looks down and she looks at me and she's like, he knows that you don't 100% understand what I'm saying right now. And he knows that this isn't really validating it. And he wants me to say, hi, Ladybug. And Ladybug is what Loeybug came from. And that was my nickname back in 3rd grade. And no one in the world except my family knows that. Literally no one in the world. My 3rd grade teacher used to call me Ladybug. And there was this time in my life, where my school, I was getting like insane grades, like 102s on everything. And my school was like, you don't need to be in 3rd grade. So they did this thing where they put me in 3rd grade for half the day, then 4th grade for half the day. And then I was still making crazy grades in 4th grade. And then they put me into 5th grade for half the day. And I remembered I was having so much anxiety because I was so young and dealing with like 2 different curriculums basically every single day of my life. And my parents were basically like, you can skip to 5th grade, that's fine, or you can stay in 3rd grade and that's fine. And we aren't gonna judge you either way. And I remember I chose my 3rd grade teacher to be my teacher for that year, partially because I felt like I didn't want to grow up that quick, but honestly a lot of it was because I was a kid and she used to call me Ladybug. She, at the end of the year, gave me this like special stone with a ladybug on it with like my name like basically like carved into it and stuff. And nobody in the world knows that my dad used to call me, that my entire family called me Ladybug. And it wasn't for a long time, it didn't last very long, but she said, hi, he wants me to say, hi, Ladybug. And I was just like on the floor sobbing, right? And she starts telling me a lot. There are just a lot of things and so many connections to my dad that no one in the entire world ever could have known. He's asking about people with, you know, their first names, their like their connections to me, their connections to like everything in life. And it was the craziest, most surreal moment of my life. And I was just crying and crying and crying and crying and just so overwhelmed, but I didn't ask any questions, right? I felt like it was almost like a spell that I didn't want to break. And I won't even get into the questions because mostly they weren't about my life. They were about my dad's life. And it was about things like, he asked about a specific girlfriend, like her exact name that no one knows, and said, you know, that he wanted me to reach out to her, that she was having a hard time and he felt like she needed me in my life. So while filming this, I was obviously very overwhelmed and it wasn't exactly the easiest story in all of it. But there were some things I wanted to mention that I didn't mention in this video, like how the candle at my dad's memorial service danced the entire time, and it was only the candle in front of his photos. He was in Alaska and we didn't have his ashes for the memorial service because they wouldn't have gotten here in time. And I remember the candle in front of his photos just danced, and it was the only candle in the entire church doing that. Like the flame just moving like crazy. And something that I had mentioned at the end, but then my camera cut out, was that my dad had mentioned through Haley recognizing that I wore a black pendant. And I had worn to my book signing this black cat pendant necklace that he got me for Christmas one year, and I never wore it because it was so special to me and I never wanted to ruin it. And he basically said that he was with me when I wore it, which is why you guys probably see me wear it a lot more now. But again, the camera sadly cut out with me here because my camera was so dead. Everything that Haley was saying perfectly aligned with my dad and things that I've never said on the internet, things that no one would ever know about me. And I know that she would never ever use my dad against me in any capacity. And I was just so overwhelmed and so floored that he would come through like that. So after the videos that we did in the Marilyn Monroe hotel, Haley went back to her hotel and I went back. Well, we both had like meetings in the morning. So I went back home and I got ready for my meeting, and then I crashed after that meeting. I went to the bathroom to like go pee or something, and I was going right back to bed. And in the mirror, I saw this huge gray thing standing over my bed. And it was like covered in feathers, and it was wearing this hood, and it was gray and massive. And I remembered looking at it and not feeling afraid. In fact, the first thing that popped into my head when I saw it was, oh, that's my guardian angel. Like, and I've never had thoughts like that. I am more spiritually awakened now, later in life even, but I'm still not like very well versed in anything. I don't talk to my spirit guides. I don't, you know, whatever. And I remember looking at it and I was like, oh, just my guardian angel, it's totally fine. And I went back to bed and I woke up like a few hours later and I was like, what the heck is wrong with you? And I told Haley about it and she was like, that is probably what it was then, if that was your first thought. And for the next few days, every time that I would talk with my dad, I would catch that same smell of like him, like this scent again, no one could ever bottle. And the weirdest thing that Haley said that night, by the way, that I should have mentioned earlier, is that my dad knew that I wanted a sign from him a week ago. And at this point it had been a week since I thought to myself, I just wish he would come through. And I went to sleep crying that night because I so badly wanted to hear from him. And Haley said he knew that you wanted a sign, but you weren't ready yet. Just things no one in the world could ever know. And such specific details that I've never told anybody. And I just was like, he's here. And if my dad is here, then the entire afterlife is completely real. I have had experiences with the paranormal in every capacity. I have had experiences where my brother's life was saved because of things that cannot be explained, and those are his stories to tell if he ever chooses to come on my channel and tell them. I've had stories about everything in life, like feeling certain intuitions and them winding up saving me or saving a family member or saving us from serious harm at the very least. And I truly 100% believe in ghosts, spirits, the afterlife. I believe in all of it. I believe in the darker things too, but when you hear me talk about scary things all of the time, I don't want it always to be scary. I want there to be these moments too where it's like talking about how family members have come back and touched you in some way, how, you know, the afterlife has come back and healed you in some way, because that's what happened to me. I, to this day, have never opened the box with my dad's ashes inside. And that may never happen, honestly. I don't know. I'm never saying never, but at the end of the day, this was my closure with my dad because I didn't get to say goodbye to him. And I did feel in a lot of ways that there was this like connection that needed not to be closed, but I wished I could say so many things to him. And it was like when he came through Haley, he already knew all of it. He knew everything that I felt. And what was so funny was he said specifically, like, hold me accountable for the bad things that I did too. Because I look at him in this like perfect light now, and he was just human. I mean, he messed up and we all mess up. If there's something I want you to take away from this, it's that being spiritually closed off or choosing not to have spirituality is totally fine. But you don't always have to be afraid. And there are such good things too. I mean, yeah, I experience weird, like haunting crap all the time, but there are the stories like this in between that really healed me and really helped me to move forward in my own life. And knowing that my dad really is present 24/7 is the most, that feeling of peace, that feeling of like warmth, and like, it's like all the time now. And that's something I could never ever explain any other way. I could not tell this story and just get on here and seem super preachy about religion and spirituality or anything like that. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I just want to thank you guys for listening, because this was a really emotional and hard story to tell. I'm not going to front that it wasn't, but I also hope that in a lot of ways it inspires you in your own life and in your own journey to spirituality, to the lack of it. I hope it entertained you in some way or inspired you in some way. And I hope you'll share your similar stories with me down below. Regardless, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I love you all very, very, very much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.